So way back, closer to the beginning of Scripture, in the book of Genesis, there is this other story. This story where God has planted a garden and put two people, the entirety of the human race, in it. And God has given them one instruction. You can eat from any tree in this garden. All of this food is available to you, except I would like it if you would not eat from that one tree over there. The big one. The one that looks like the fruit is delicious. The one standing in a clearing with all sorts of lit signs pointing at it. The one with a snake just kind of hanging out. That tree is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat from that. And of course, the humans eat from that tree. They take this thing that must have been there for a reason, and they learn that now they cannot live in this garden anymore. They have to head out into the wider world where there is good and there is evil. And they will have to struggle, and it will be hard, but they can go knowing that God is still with them. They go knowing that God has made clothes for them to wear. They go knowing that even though it will be hard, there will be grace. So we're in this sermon series, Lost and Found, and we're spending it just on this little piece of Scripture that all started with Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners. Not just teaching them, not just preaching at them, but hanging out with them, sharing food with them, listening to them, hearing them, loving them. And some scribes and Pharisees came up and said, "Jesus, you are a respectable teacher. People listen to you. People pay attention to what you are doing, and yet you are eating with tax collectors and sinners. You're hanging out with these people. What's up with that?" So Jesus starts telling these parables. And last week we covered the two that he starts off with. The parable of a lost sheep, where a shepherd loses a sheep and leaves 99 behind to go find that one and brings it home to celebrate with his friends and neighbors and fellow shepherds. And the parable of the lost coin, where a woman loses one of her gold coins out of 10 and turns the house over, tears the house apart to find that coin, and when she does, invites her friends and neighbors to celebrate. And having gotten those preliminary pieces out of the way, but remember them, he moves on to the big parable. The one that we all know about a prodigal son, the one that we're touching just the first bit of this week. We'll cover the rest next week, but this is a big parable. This is an important parable, and it builds on the ones that he just told. There was a man that had two sons, and one of them went to him and said, "Father, give me what you will give me when it is time for me to inherit what is yours. Give me now what will be mine in the future." And his father does. He divides his assets between his two sons, and he gives the one who asked exactly what he asked for. And so that son, he takes what he has gathered, and he leaves his father's estate. He leaves his dad's house, and he goes out into the world, and he spends his money on wine and women, and he has a great and wonderful time. And he is not paying attention to his spending. He is not saving up for a rainy day. It does seem like he has enough and more than enough. It seems like there's plenty to go around so he can buy rounds. He is living large. And then the money runs out. And that is bad enough. But then on top of that, a famine sweeps through the land. Suddenly, there is not enough for anyone. And everyone is stuck wondering where their next meal is going to come from, and he is certainly wondering where his next meal is going to come from. So he goes out and he finds a job taking care of pigs. And it doesn't pay enough, clearly. This is a less than minimum wage job. It could be a minimum wage job. It could be a more than minimum wage job, let's face it, but it's not enough, and he is still hungry, and he feels that rumble in his tummy, and he thinks, I could just eat what I'm feeding the pigs. I could try to snatch a bit from the bucket or from the trough or from out of their mouths, and I could eat that. It wouldn't be good, but at least it would fill me. But no one will give him any food. Not even the pigs that he is caring for will share with him. So he finally hits that rock bottom. That spot where he has to think to himself, I have nothing. I don't just not have enough, I've got nothing. I'm fighting with pigs over their food. I am lost and I am broken. I am stretched out. I am exhausted. This is a feeling that we know. This is a feeling that Scripture knows. The prophets know it. The psalmists know it. You can find this again and again throughout Scripture, this result of those two people leaving the garden, going out into the world, this fact that there is good and there is evil, there is enough and there is not enough. There are times of plenty and times of want. And even we know how this feels. We know what this is. Some of us know it materially. When the money has run out and the SNAP benefits have not come through and we don't know how we're going to pay the bills, and oh my God, what are we going to do? There is not enough. Some of us know it physically. We have been stretched out by hunger or exhaustion or illness. Left on our own, unable to manage, to move, to breathe, to live. Some of us know it mentally or emotionally or socially. That loneliness and despair that can creep over us, that feeling of loss and being lost, that not knowing where to go or where to turn. Those moments when in our brokenness we just kind of collapse on the kitchen floor and wait. This son feels that. This son knows that. This son is clear on that. And so he thinks to himself in this moment of utter devastation and loss and exhaustion, he thinks to himself, I could go back to my father's house. I could go back to my dad's estate. Not as a son. I burned that bridge. But I could go and I could ask him for help. I could say, hire me. Give me a job. I will work for what I need because I know he pays well. I know his workers have bread enough to eat and more. And he steels himself. He girds his loins. He puts on his armor. And he goes. And he is ready to tell his dad what he thinks he needs to tell his dad. He is ready to say the things he thinks that he needs to say. But pay attention to the previous two parables. What he doesn't know, what I am convinced that he doesn't know, is that while he may have left his dad's estate, his dad has never left him. The shepherd went out into the wilderness to find the lost sheep. The woman tore the house apart to find the lost coin. What father, what mother, what parent would not tear the world apart to find their lost child? Dad has been there the whole time. Dad has been watching. Dad has been calling. Dad has been sending letters. Dad has made arrangements in the background. Dad went to a pig farmer and said he would be a good hire. Help him out. Dad knows what his son needs and isn't going to leave him to wallow in despair. But now the son is coming home. And he knows, he thinks he knows. He thinks he knows what he has to say. He is crossing the field towards his dad's estate. And his dad sees him and runs to him and embraces him. And the son starts on his little speech. Dad, I know I messed up. I've sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer fit to be called your son, but hire me as an employee and help me out a little bit. And Dad cuts him off and calls his servants and has them prepare a party to celebrate this son who he loves coming home. There are versions of our faith, and I'm not casting aspersions here, but there are versions of our faith. I've been told about them. There are versions of our faith. I have been evangelized over them. There are versions of our faith. I have been told that you have to believe this or you don't get it. There are versions of our faith that say, if you want God's love, the fullness of God's love, the completeness of God's reign of love, if you want that, if you want to go get into that, you have to go to God and fall on your knees and say, God, I have sinned against you and against heaven, and I am not even fit to be called your child. Give me the crumbs off of your table, though. Just a little bit to get through. But I believe wholeheartedly that when we start that, God cuts us off. God says, no, that's not how this works. I've been looking for you this entire time. I have been arranging things for you this entire time. I have been trying in a world full of good and evil to add enough good that you will be okay, and now you're here. Now you have come to this estate, to this reign of love. Now you are here. Don't fall on your knees and put your face on the ground. Don't beg for what I have been offering you this entire time. Come in. Come in and celebrate. for everything has been prepared. I have been waiting just for this. There is a story at the beginning of the Bible where God plants a garden and puts two people, the whole of the human race, in it, and they mess up. And they head out into a world that has good and has evil. And it's a story that is there to explain why things are the way that they are. Why things aren't as reflective of a good God as we might hope. And there's this sentence that is in there. Because when God tells them not to eat from the tree, he says, the day that you eat of that tree, the day that you eat that fruit, the day that you take a bite of that fruit, you will die. And this leads to some consternation because they don't die. They're just sent away. But the words of the Father in this parable, the words of the God who is love, are true. Because the minute those two left that garden, the minute we as humans stepped away from God's love, we died. We left the abundant life of our Father's estate, of our parents' estate, and we found ourselves bound by the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less. But when the Son comes home, when we come home, when we come to God and God says, come in and celebrate, we are brought back to life. Not just a little bit, but all the way. We who are lost are found. We who are dead are resurrected. We who found ourselves without enough suddenly have more than enough. That is the story of our faith. That is the God who we have faith in. That is the God who we trust in those times when we are broken, in those times when we are exhausted, in those times when we are worn out, we can return to God. The God who is love. We can return to love and be renewed, be restored, be redeemed, be resurrected, and step in to God's reign of love. Step in to new and abundant life.